All right, guys, good morning. I am actually early, so I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes to get in before we start and just see who we have. Just kind of getting in some extras, make sure everybody can find us. We're scheduled to start at 12 o'clock noon Central Time because I'm in Texas. And let me just type this, y'all, because talking and texting is so hard. Talking and spelling, I think, is so hard. And I do it for a living, so. If you haven't learned anything else, make sure that you always kind of keep your hashtag following you along. And you're going to notice I have tried to put do not disturb on the phone. I've probably come up with just about everything I can think of so we can get through this. This tutorial is actually on the Peekaboo method. So all my tumblers for newbies, I saw a couple of you guys nervous to take your Cricut Maker out of the box. Take it out of the box. It has been in that box. If it has been in that box for more than 24 hours, you are in violation. Take it out of the box, y'all. Do not let that sit there. If you are one of my sublimation people, because I know a lot of people start tumblers, trays, shirts, whatever, and y'all sublimation for me is intimidating, I'll be honest. I have a friend, that's her thing. It's not really my thing. But if you have spent the money, you've been watching the videos online, I need you to take the stuff out the box. If you have ordered the tumblers, it is time. This is actually not one of my creations. It's actually one of the ones I found in a Tumbler group here on Facebook, guys. And I'm gonna be honest, I love this tumbler. I teach high school, and when I go to school, the kids are they're laughing all the time. They love the chapstick tumbler. So if you are some sublimation kind of person, I love you. You know, the glitter work is cute. As long as your design is nice and smooth, I am all about it. But Peekaboo method, we're gonna go through before 12 since we're kind of early. I'm gonna show you my first attempt at a Peekaboo. And I'm gonna pick out all the stuff that I did wrong, because you know that's what we do. And I'm gonna show you my second and third Peekaboos and then how they've changed. I'm now working on a group order. So I have 4 tumblers that actually need to look pretty similar to one another for a department at my school. And so it's important that you just try something different, find a method that you like and that you know you can repeat, especially when you have any group orders. That's the big one. The other thing is it comes down to the glitters you love. All glitters are not the same. You're gonna hear me say that quite a bit. I'm getting better about going back and putting in links. You're gonna hear me mention a couple of videos from YouTube as well, because YouTube is awesomeness, y'all. I try not to be the person that leaves a comment that says, YouTube, we know that. Give me the website, like give me something. And I'm gonna warn you, always watch more than one YouTube video, because that becomes hard. We all skip steps. So skipping steps is going to be a big one. If you're only watching one kind of video, that's probably what's going to happen. You're going to skip steps. I'm going to give you a look at the type of tumbler that we're going to create today. And this was actually my first Peekaboo. And we'll talk about where this one kind of came from. This was the cup that came with the cup turner. The pink version is actually the version I'll be working on today. So I'll show you the turner itself. It's the one from Amazon. The kit is about $24, I do believe. Hi, how are you? Just getting started, just showing some products. But this is one of the first ones I bought. This is the cup that came with the $24 kit that is actually on Amazon. Y'all, the kit actually comes with a turner, cup, the small little silicone spatulas, cups, gloves. I'm gonna be honest, for $24, and I know that you can make a turner for probably $5 or less, but to be honest, that $24 kit from Amazon with the cup turner is amazing. that thing works. So this is the kind of the practice technique. And we'll talk about, especially when you're trying to pick your font, what fonts are going to be your favorite. We'll talk about some of the things with what type of vinyl. Some people use 651, which they mean Oracle. Oracle does either 651 or 631. And all the numbers are telling you whether it's removable vinyl, 631, permanent vinyl, which is 651. And then they, of course, have like heat transfer vinyl, which you use on t-shirts, garments, and things like that. I'm going to be honest. Whenever I do a peekaboo, I try to use removable vinyl. And there are going to be a couple of reasons why. If you use permanent vinyl, for example, I have 3 kids. So sometimes I will epoxy in between kids asking me for something. So if I add my vinyl, I spray paint, which I'll show you that step as well. You will then turn around and notice that if you leave the vinyl on there too long, permanent vinyl starts to cure. And it's going to stick to that paint level or that glitter epoxy level that you have under your tumbler. And it makes it really hard for you to go back and weed off your vinyl. And it ends up leaving this little residue. Hi guys, how are you? We have not officially started this morning. We're waiting on everybody to kind of get in. So I'm just showing you one of the first little peekaboos that I did. These areas here, because you will see these if you are doing those dinosaur tumblers, the ones that like the Jurassic Park ones is what you see most often. And you'll see these areas where it looks like the paint has been rubbed off to reveal that glitter that's below. You can do that with acetone. So acetone will do that. If you have 91% or higher alcohol, you can take a Q-tip. I personally just use a paper towel. And I find my areas where I have a bubble or a dent. And that's where I will go in and remove those areas so that before I put that layer of epoxy on, I can go in, sand, and it's going to turn into a design similar like this. If you have not peekabooed before, be careful about using really, really small, intricate designs at first. I go with a larger design. And you're going to notice for spacing, you want to kind of think about where your word is going to be placed. There's actually a seam on the lip of your cup. So if you look at your cups, most of these have a seam somewhere along the lip side where you can put your finger to lift it up. If you want to put your name where you normally put that seam at, then that'll help you get a center area as well. Now, the other thing, as far as what's on the outside, you'll see people who do alcohol inks. You'll see others, for example, this is the second peekaboo that I did at the very top. So we had that under glitter area. I used ultra fine glitter for this one. This one wasn't as bad. So the biggest thing is you have to epoxy and you have to have a smooth surface before you add your decal. All right. So we're going to take a look at how to peekaboo. And there's marbling on the bottom of this one. I'll be honest, guys, this is my second attempt at this cup. And this little marble section at the bottom, oh, it would give you some life, okay? Do you hear me? Some life. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on the peekaboo for today. In case anything blinks, you know I'm in Texas. We are still down. I don't even think we've reached the teens today, but I am blessed enough to have power, so I'm going to use it. You're going to see a couple of cups. I will use a total of 4 to get us through our peekaboo all in one little session. So just kind of stick with me. We're going to start with this black tumbler that I have. So let me just bend you down a little bit so you can kind of see where we are and what we're going to be working on today. So, for example, I got a lot of people who ask the question, and y'all pray for me. We're going to get this in. There we go. All right. This is a commonly regular sprayed blue tumbler. All right. Black tumbler. And you're going to learn pretty quickly. And let me clean this off. Y'all, excuse me. There we go. Got a little something on the phone. You're going to notice that solid colored tumblers can be a little bit harder for you to work with. If you are working with a solid black or blue tumbler, anything that's a darker color, I have this client in particular who's in our department. It's for one of our male teachers. He doesn't want glitter. Some people will add mica powder. It's one thing that they will add to this particular cup. There are other people that will just spray paint it and leave it regular. This is one of the cups, and you may see it in the group. We're gonna be working on 30-ounce cups. I picked these up from Rural King. They have them on clearance. This 30-ounce cup is like $2.43. Yes, they deliver. You can order one cup, you can order several cups. I'll be honest, it's worth it to order. I think my first order was like 30 cups. And I decided I was gonna use this size and shape because of that curve to use these as my practice tumblers. And that became a really big thing for me. I didn't want to sell my first 10 cups. So I made the agreement I would do 10 cups before I ever started selling to anybody else. These start out green. They are powder coated, and yes, they have this colored cap as well. So some people will sand. I always sand. I lightly sand using the wet sand under the sink. So if you're indoors in an apartment or anything like that, you can place this in your kitchen, put it under the faucet, and you're gonna sand. And I prefer the 3M blocks, sanding blocks. These come in boxes of 6, and you can pick these up actually from Amazon, Walmart, any hardware store. These will be perfect for you. The block just makes it easier. You can use sandpaper. This is a medium grit, so about 400 or so. Some people do sandpaper 200, 800, just depends on the product you're working with. You're gonna notice the other cups like this for the rest of the department though, they are all chunky glitter. So with chunky glitter, you're gonna use a little bit more epoxy. You've gotta be a little bit more patient, and that's gonna be a big one as well. So don't shy away. If you see any cups on sale at Walmart that are powder coated, baby, pick them up because glitter will stick, and these babies are amazing. Even with shipping, I think these come out of Kentucky because they're from a feed store. Rural King is a feed store. It adds about 24 cents per cup. So I paid $2.93 total for this 30-ounce cup. And these babies have been amazing so far. These tops, you can pop them off. So these will come off. You can sand them and spray paint them any color you would like. I've seen some people use the citrus strip to just strip it. But honestly, you can just lightly sand it, y'all, paint over it, and be good. All right, so don't shy away from cups, and don't forget your bottoms. All right. So we're gonna go ahead. Step 1, I want you to always sand your cup. So always, when you take your cup out, I will remove my label, go to my kitchen, and I have a video on this part already. Go ahead and place this under the sink, and I would lightly sand all the way around. And you know how like your silver tumblers, they have that shine, so you kind of scratch the shine off? For this one, you do not have to remove all of the powder coat. So I don't have to sand this until I get down to the silver. I don't want to do that. I just want to lightly scratch the surface all the way around. Keep in mind that these cups are going to be the same. So these are the same cups. This is another 30 ounce that we did from Rural King. And we're just using those epoxy layers to flow in for me. You didn't need me? All right. So if you see me looking to the side, y'all, it's probably because one of my kids has come to look for me. Now, let's go over, do you use PPE? You're gonna notice in the video that some people don't, and it's because they're talking to the camera and they wanna make sure you can hear them. I personally do wear PPE. When I sand outside, especially, I picked this little baby up from Amazon. I have one of the larger ones. You're looking for anything that captures dust and small particles. So in the paint department, if you need a little respirator, these are anywhere from 21 to 44 bucks. I'll be honest, I like this one because it's lightweight and both of these filters are easy to find. You can get filters at Walmart as well. I use nitrile gloves if I have them available. Honestly, I'm out of those right now, and there's still like a couple of inches of snow outside. We're in Texas. So I'm gonna be using latex gloves today. These are gonna be a little bit longer. I kind of use these in my lab as well, because you want to make sure that epoxy is not touching the skin. I use Art and Glow epoxy. It's one of those, they have smaller cans of it. If you are a Hobby Lobby shopper, if you love Michaels, I believe you can find it at Joann's. I don't really have a Joann's very close to me anymore. We used to. Y'all know how they build a new area, everything goes further out. And Joann's is one of those things that went further out. So, hi guys, for those who are just joining, we're about to epoxy this baby. One thing is, once you have sanded your cup, The goal is for you not to touch that cup with your bare hands again. So let's say you are getting fish eyes. You're getting those areas in your epoxy where it looks like the epoxy makes these craters or bubbles. It's from the oils that are actually in your hand. So you don't want to do that. And we're working on a cup turner, one of the ones that comes in the kit that you can get at Amazon for $24. I have a silicone mat. You can get these in a 3-pack. If you order the kit, they will come with a small silicone mat as well, which that baby is pretty awesome and very helpful. They also come with their stirring sticks and everything else. Now, you're going to get the question sometimes, how do you know how much epoxy you want to mix up? I try to keep a mold on the side. We have an IKEA that is not too far away, thankfully. We're actually moving up, and they have these ice cube trays. And what I will do is if I have extra epoxy, like for this one, I just had epoxy from doing probably about 4 or 5 tumblers. I will add my dump glitter in there and I'm gonna plop it on. You can send them as free gifts. I use them at craft fairs, just to be little table items that kids can come by and pick up as well. So this baby is turning. And if you've been with me long enough, I'm pretty sure that you have seen my hand touch this a couple times. So I have another phone to the side, guys, from my other side. Oh, got a question. All right, so what kind of paint? I use Rust-Oleum paint. So what I'm doing, because on the outside, it is, I want to say we may be at 15 degrees right now. If you read the can, which I don't do very often, honestly, you're technically not supposed to spray anytime the temperature is below 50 degrees. So anywhere between 50 to 90. I live in Texas, y'all. 90 degrees during the summer is like spring. And that's just being honest. This is 91% alcohol. I'm just going around because this cup has actually been sitting out for a little while. And I'm pretty sure that something has touched the surface of it by now. And I just want to make sure that this baby is doing as good as it can. So I'm going to lightly wipe it down. When you do this after you have sanded a cup, you're going to notice that your paper towel, y'all, is actually dirty. Like that paper towel is covered in just the items from the factory where it's from. Be sure to take a look at your tumbler and to make sure that that baby is as even as possible. Now, this is actually turning toward me. And I've seen people just turn the entire tumbler around. But I'm going to cut this off for a little bit as I prepare. And this is just sanded alcohol, wiped down, spray painted black. I leave it on the handle. I go outside of my garage, light layers about 8 inches away from the cup. If you turn your tumbler off for just a second and then turn it back on, it's then going to spin in the opposite direction. Because we're working on more than one cup today, because we are doing the Peekaboo method, we're going to pretend as though this is a cup for a customer that I do not want to add any glitter to. So we're going to epoxy this. Keep in mind, you're only going to use about 2 milliliters. If you are just starting out, it is hard to only use 2 milliliters of epoxy. Let's be honest. Some of y'all are killing yourselves trying to mix just 2 liters of epoxy. It is not going to happen. I started out with pouring about 5. And what I realized is I wasn't using the heat from my hand long enough to smooth the epoxy back and forth. That first layer should be extremely, extremely smooth and thin. All right. Now, as I said before, I use Art and Glow epoxy, and I'll dip it down. I actually have the snow cone tops on here. It allows me to squeeze out roughly about 60 ml for both of these. So these come from Amazon. These are your snow cone pumps. You can either get the 1 ounce or the 2 ounce pumps, depending on how many tumblers you're doing at a time. I'm actually going to be working on about 3 to 4 tumblers today. So I'm going to do the full 60 milliliters. These silicone cups will come with your kit, and I still stir mostly with a wooden spoon. So I'm going to pump out my hardener first. I tend to go with the hardener first because number one, the hardener flows a lot easier, y'all. So for most people, when they talk about, oh, my part A, you know, there's always one part of your epoxy that's a little bit thicker than the other parts. And that's going to be one of the things you're going to notice. That thicker part you have to be really careful with, because that's going to be the resin itself. You want to make sure you get your proper amount of resin. And then you also want to make sure that if all else fails and I have to pick who to have more of, it's going to be my hardener. Because I want to make sure that that one complete pump has made it all the way into my cup. So I'm looking to the side and we're sitting at about 60. All right. Remember, this is your moment for PPE. So your respirator's on. I have a ceiling fan in this room. I have an additional fan and I have a window that is going to be cracked as well. You're going to notice that this baby is sliding. We're going to play with this cup a couple of times, y'all, because I usually don't use this particular foam piece for it. So I may have to replace that foam piece before. And I don't like touching my cup too often. And I'm a little nervous about this one because the longer I sit here, the more it moves. Remember, you're going to scrape your edges. Now, if you are actually using these smaller medicine cups, the ones that I think are maybe, what, 10, 20 milliliters, 30 milliliters each, you can do the same thing. I normally use 3 of those small medicine cups at a time. I put part A in one cup, part B in the second one. I will mix my thicker into my thinner because the thicker part of your epoxy is going to stick to the side of that cup a lot more. All right. You don't have to mix too quickly. And the other thing I really want you guys to be mindful of, your epoxy does not have to be bubble free. I have a lot of people that spend time. If you look here, there are bubbles in my epoxy. The other thing that people get nervous about, if your epoxy has been outside, you're going to notice also, and I'll just hold my tray up, this epoxy is yellow. Everybody notice, like, one is more yellow than the other. My hardener is yellower than the other one. If for any reason, if you keep your epoxy in a garage, it's going to yellow, okay? If you keep it a little bit closer to the window, it's going to yellow. They do have a newer version that has more UV control, if that's one of the issues. But what I do to keep my whites white, because I haven't been doing tumblers very long, but I've been making rolling trays, and some people love just a pearl white, opal white kind of tumbler. If you add in a little acrylic paint or a little mixative, snow cap, mixative to your epoxy, it will remain white longer. All right. I also tell my customers, if they have a large area of white, like this is a completely white tumbler, they're going to see some change in color over time. So most of them are kind of prepared for it, but I've learned to add a mixative that will keep that color. How long do you stir? If you read the simple directions on the side, most of the time it's 3 to 5 minutes. To be honest, what I do in these silicone cups is I go around and I scrape the bottom as well. And then I just lift my wooden stick. And if I can look to the side, you'll notice it's going to be clear. It doesn't take nearly as long as you think. Once you're done stirring your epoxy, if you let it sit for a second, you will also notice that the bubbles are going to come to the surface, and we're going to allow that to happen as well. So this is mixed pretty well. We're going to just epoxy and just show you guys the thin layering of what you could use as the base for your glitter. So if you're using a fine glitter or a chunky glitter, there's going to be some differences. I'm going to show you a cup in a little bit where it's going to be this color. I use Makerflo glitter. It's one of my favorites. And this will be the tumbler that will actually be putting a layer of epoxy on, so I can kind of just demonstrate how chunky glitter is, because this is a chunky holographic glitter. And then our second tumbler that we're going to use to show you how to apply decals today has actually been colored in jade. And both of these are going to come from Makerflo glitter. They do sell a variety 24 pack. I believe it comes out seasonally, but they will not have all of their colors available. So I'm assuming they're a small company. But guys, when I tell you the glitter is amazing, it's amazing. Are there air bubbles in my epoxy? Absolutely. Am I going to let those air bubbles bother me? Of course not, because we have a heat gun as well. So after you've let it sit, I'm going to go back along the sides. Art and Glow Epoxy will give you about a 30 to 40 minute window work time, depending on how warm or cool the workroom is. And I use my Wagner heat gun. Wagner has been a real friend to me. Some people prefer to use a torch as well. So whether you use a torch, your hair dryer normally doesn't get hot enough, but for some people it does. So if you have something that just gets hot enough to bring those bubbles to the surface, that's going to be helpful as well. So let's get started on this first little piece. So let's clean this off just a little bit. I'm going to start here in the middle. We're going to pour just a little bit of epoxy, and I'm going to move that hand back and forth. It does not take very much. If your epoxy, for any reason, is dripping off of your cup, it's too much epoxy. And that's kind of the point I thought I was supposed to get to. Like, my hand should never hit a dry spot. It should never, and now that was just not working. And this cup is probably going to need to be placed on another foamy once we're all said and done. Because right now, I have that little foam piece in the middle, and it doesn't always want to hold. So I have to be kind of careful with it, but we'll be in here for the majority of the time. This layer of epoxy will actually dry pretty quickly. It will not take it long at all. And because I'm not glittering, I'm literally just sealing this cup. So the paint doesn't scratch. Nothing else hopefully will get to this base coat, because solid color base coats are going to be your hardest. When you talk about what's the most difficult cup to do, honestly, so far, I don't think it's the multiple steps of the Peekaboo that bother me. I think it's actually just keeping my solid color cups as clean looking as possible. The longer you wipe back and forth, the warmer your epoxy is going to get. It's using the heat from your hand to be thinned. And notice it's an extremely thin coat. If you were doing fine glitter, you will know if you're doing too much epoxy, because you're going to get wet spots. So you're going to have all these random darkish spots, like your glitter just sat in one area. That's not glitter sitting in one area. That's the sign that you are using way too much epoxy. And at this point, I can probably dip my hand in, dip my finger in, and I would normally tighten this up and move it to a different tumbler, but this is actually all that's going on with this cup today. So this is just to show you how thin of a coat we're actually going for on this tumbler. And this is a 30-ounce tumbler. So 30 ounces is probably going to put you a little bit above that 2 millimeter that everyone shoots for. If you're doing a skinny, sometimes that works. But if I'm doing a chunky glitter, which for some reason I am loving chunky glitters. If you guys have a favorite glitter company, please drop it below, because I'm just really getting into glitter. So please let me know in the comments what glitters you have used so far, which ones you've really fell in love with. Because I've been getting a lot of rose gold, seems to be really popular, especially my young ladies. The honeybee cup, I think, is really going to be popular again this spring, because I get that a lot as well. So having a nice gold and rose gold in mine, a good black glitter is always nice to have on tap. But think about it. We use less than 4 milliliters, about 3 milliliters to get this done. And this baby is not going to sit on this turner even to save its life. But we're going to act like it is. Now, I epoxy the bottom of my cups. I do. Oh, no, we didn't want to do that. Y'all, we have like an epoxy hot mess going on. But we're going to use this glitter, this epoxy that just poured everywhere into my little container. I don't know. I guess I'm just going to use my finger, honestly, to get it up so that I don't make any more mistakes. Not on this video today. There are some ridges. So if you have ridges in your cup, you're going to want to kind of seal those in to give the rest of your epoxy somewhere to go and to stick to. Because what you're going to notice is those ridges You will get questions like, do the ridges disappear? Yes. If you are glittering, marbling, if you go ahead and add a layer of epoxy, when you're doing your first layer of glitter, you can get rid of these bottom ridges and these top ridges as well. So we are just looking at this cup. We're going to lightly smooth. And I think honestly that this baby is covered. When you feel as though you have covered every side of your tumbler, and you guys have noticed how much wobbling I've had, not a perfect scenario, but I'm using the wrong size pool noodle insert. So I will actually change the insert, but I know that the insert is also going to allow this cup to spin just fine. So I'm gonna remove as much epoxy as I can. When you are just smoothing your finger, just allowing it to go through. You don't want anything else left, but you want to make sure that you have covered these edges. This bottom edge here, right here, make sure it's not too thick. It's going to give you a wobbly bottom cup. And I've seen where if you epoxy over your glitter, you're going to notice it. If you allow this to spin just a second, so give it a couple of seconds, you're going to also notice that your bubbles will come to the surface. This is when that bubbly, like micro bubbles that were in your epoxy, this is the moment where you can actually stop and take care of those bubbles. All right. So this is that moment that you have been waiting for so that you can take care of that. And every time I touch the bottom of this cup, just to keep it on this little turner, that's what I'm doing just because of where it sits. And actually I'm thinking of another trick that we can do. If you ever have a moment where you're like me, and normally you pick the right size sponge, but for some reason you haven't, if you stop your tumbler for a hot second, because it's already epoxy, you can push that down and keep your epoxy rim just off the turner. And it's gonna pick back up in that same position, and just make sure that it is not touching the bottom, right? That's all the touching of this cup I wanna do. So I'm gonna heat up my heat gun. This is a Wagner heat gun. Any home store will have one, Home Depot, Lowe's, any hardware store. These are gonna work amazingly for your bubbles. So it's gonna help me remove those bubbles that have come to the surface. And I actually do this more than one time. So I will allow this to keep turning, because remember, epoxy is self-leveling. So most of you guys are using self-leveling epoxy. The longer it spins, the better opportunity you're gonna have to work with that. And you'll notice after we epoxy our second cup, we'll come back to this cup to make sure that no bubbles have formed, all right? So we're all done with this one. If I was doing my Peekaboo, I've sanded the cup. I have used my sanding block. I've washed it with Dawn dish soap, wiped it down dry. Then I sprayed and applied my alcohol. After you've wiped it again for the alcohol, remember, use gloved hands for the rest of your process. If you're going to spray paint your cup, go ahead and spray paint it. Make sure that your paint is fully dry. Sometimes you get excited. I recommend spray painting that cup first and then coming back later on after you worked on another tumbler. Once my paint is dry, which we use Rust-Oleum flat paint. Yes, you can use flat. Yes, you can use satin. And yes, you can also use gloss. My only warning with gloss paint is, remember, spray further away. You may have to do more than one layer and take your time, because gloss is more prone to run, but gloss paint works as well. After it's completely dry, epoxy, and then you're going to allow this to spin, and we will come back and attend to any micro bubbles that happen to pop up anywhere in between. So let's say after this process, we decided for our Peekaboo cup that we are going to now go in and apply glitter. Why? Because that's what people in our industry do. We love glitter. Glitter is awesome. Glitter is your friend, okay? You can't do this without glitter, y'all. And remember, I have wasted epoxy here. So, I just did the, oh no. Of course, I just touched my arm to the bottom of my black tumbler. And you've got to be careful because remember, black tumblers will always show your mistakes, but we do have self-leveling epoxy. So my little arm print is all gone. All right, so this baby here. This is after you have applied your very thin glitter layer and then apply your favorite glitter. So this is actually the Makerflo Champagne glitter that I showed you guys earlier. And at this point, you have allowed your glitter to turn about halfway through. I wait about 2, maybe 3 hours. I grab parchment paper and I wrap my cup in parchment paper. And what you want to do for that moment is you're going to flatten. So wrap a piece around and actually take your hand and flatten and pat down your glitter. It's going to make you use a lot less epoxy when it's all said and done. So I've seen questions on how do you epoxy chunky glitter. You use more epoxy, y'all. That's all it is to it. So remember this epoxy that we wasted on the table? Well, we're going to use this now. I am not going to allow my good old epoxy to go to waste because y'all know epoxy is not cheap, people. So normally I will be flooding this baby from the top because your chunky glitter is going to take a little bit more epoxy. If you go ahead and actually do a flood coat now, it's going to save you a lot of time later. Yes, I do use chunky glitter on the bottom of my cups. I prefer a fully glittered cup. Like, I don't forget about the bottom of my outfit. I'm not forgetting about the bottom of my cup. Some people don't. You are welcome to take this area off, which you can. If you use a good quality glitter, like there are different types of chunky. I bought some that I loved from Hobby Lobby. Loved it. And then, of course, Hobby Lobby did what they always do. They take your favorite product, and guess what, y'all? They stop carrying it. So the glitter is discontinued for whatever reason. All I knew was that glitter had beautiful coverage, and it would shine. I'm going to apply this epoxy layer. My goal is to get the smoothest layer that I can. Because, honestly, if I can do this once, I will. Normally with chunky glitter, I go more than once. I will normally have to epoxy twice. And I don't hesitate from epoxying twice. That's fine if I have to. So that's the other thing that will happen. But you're going to apply a good layer of epoxy. If this is, for example, I think this is a 30-ounce straight, I'm going to use about 20 milliliters of epoxy. So 20 to 30 milliliters of epoxy is what I'm going to use on this cup. I want to make sure it's sealed. I want to make sure it's flat because remember, for the Peekaboo method, you are going to add that decal. Those decals have to be perfectly smooth. The decal and the spray paint are going to show and tell on you. And I'm going to show you what happened during my first Peekaboo. Because I know we had a few people saying they tried it. It was horrible. And I'm going to show you my horrible, y'all. I got to show it all. If I'm going to show you the decent and the good, I've got to show you the not so great because you are not alone. The same thing is going to go for here. Normally, you will not make this an extremely thin coat. If you're having problems along the rim of your cup, it's probably 80% of the time because you're not putting enough epoxy toward the rim. Some people are going over the rim. So I'm going to get this better in view. Let me just slide this baby in. Let me show you guys the rim really quickly. I'm going up toward my rim, but my hand is staying straight. I'm not dipping into the cup because that's going to leave me epoxy inside of that cup that you then have to turn around and either use a razor blade or an X-Acto knife to pop out. If you have any glitter, like I have a couple of stray pieces that are sticking up here, I'm going to file those away after I do my second coat. So I normally will do this coat for my chunky glitters. I'm going to do it twice. If I, for example, choose to let this first layer of glitter be my only layer in between sanding. Some people will sand after every layer. You're going to sand off some of that holographic finish on your epoxy because your epoxy is not very thick. So I highly recommend. This is going to turn into a coloring book tumbler. If you've seen the Winnie the Pooh ones where it looks like a coloring sheet and somebody fills it in with glitter, that's what we're going to do on this one. I'm going to do Princess Tiana on my little cup because this cup is for me. So if you want to do the live for the coloring tumbler, let me know and I will let you guys kind of just go along with me on there. Let's see, do we have any questions? Any questions? No questions? If you got a question, guys, go ahead and ask. This is your Peekaboo tumbler. So we have sand your cup. We have cleaned it with Dawn dish soap, wiped it down dry. We then went in and we alcoholed the cup and wiped it down again. Spray painted your base color. Some people will always do a base coat of white or black. I know a lot of tumbler makers, those are the only two base colors they think about using, and those are the only two they actually use. And hey, that's respectable. I am all with it. I have other people, I try to get as close to the glitter color that I'm going to use. I use an orange base, kind of like that pumpkin spice color. This one is completely covered. It's not going to be the thickest of coats because I'm going to go back in and do a second coat on this one before I sand. All right. So you have now glittered your tumbler, allowed it to dry. You pat it down using your parchment paper. So you wrap your parchment paper, took your hands and crunched in your chunky glitter. If you do fine glitter, you don't have to do that step. Then you allow it to fully rotate, cure 4 to 6 hours and dry. We started this one. We're going to put that first layer of epoxy. I'm going to let this one turn for another 4 to 6 hours and dry. And then I go in and do another layer. I do a second layer of epoxy, about 15 to 20 milliliters, because this is a 30-ounce skinny. And I'm going to also cover that as well. So we're going to say you've made it to the point where you now have your cup is ready to go. And this is going to be our baby here for our ready to go cup. So we have applied 2 layers of epoxy. We have also gone in and taken our time. Guys, I'm only looking around because I'm supposed to be epoxying something else. And I just realized that I'm not going to be ready to epoxy it. So let me show you what I do with extra glitter, because this is a dry cup. I don't want to keep epoxy and a dry cup in the same area with each other. So remember that mold that we had that everybody was kind of making eye contact? Look at your mold. And what I do is I go ahead and remove one of my gloves because I'm touching and I am one of those, I wipe the powder on myself, y'all, all the time. That dump cup glitter, all of your extra glitter that you have lying around, which sometimes I end up with quite a bit. And this is going to be a lot because I had not actually anticipated stopping at this point. I thought I had another cup to go. But what I'm going to do is take this little container. And y'all, I probably should have kept my little cup, but I didn't. So I use my paper towel to hold my bottle. I'm going to mix in a little of that dump glitter. And if you look here, that cup is now nicely, whatever your dump glitter color is. These are all those little trinkets that you can make. Sometimes I use these to make reading games for kids, and they can move it around like it's a board piece. So these are like the board pieces that you can offer. I'm a teacher, don't talk about me. I know how this goes. But we're gonna fill these stars in. And this is actually what I do with my extra epoxy. So I don't allow any drops of epoxy to go to waste. If I'm going to be pulled away from a project unexpectedly, then I will go ahead and do this with any epoxy that I still have sitting around. It's better that it dries in a mold. You can use it later for something, or just give trinkets away. You can go ahead and create. Some people have those little circles that show you what glitters they have available. If you have a customer that's ordering from you and they just can't seem to imagine what glitter color you're referring to. So we're going to pour those in the mold, and you just allow your mold to sit. It's going to be a good way for you not to waste epoxy. All right. And those are ice cube trays, silicone ice cube trays from IKEA. If you have an IKEA close to you guys, they are amazing. And I'm one of those, I don't have a sink. Some people are lucky enough to have a sink. So I just, for some reason I wear black, I'll wipe it on myself. And then I will wash my hands later. Now, we're going to our next step of Peekaboo. You have glittered twice. We have epoxied, so glittered, epoxy twice. And it's now time for us to move on to the Peekaboo part of it. I'm gonna move my silicone mat. Remember, epoxy will not cure to silicone. That's the best thing about it. So the good thing is you can move that stuff around, let it do what it do, and it's not gonna make very much of a mess because that epoxy is not going to cure, okay? So that'll be all right with you as well. Now, this cup has been sanded in between. So I did my 2 layers of epoxy and then I sanded the cup, and this needs to be smooth to the touch because we are gonna add our decals to this layer, all right? Now I'm gonna slightly wipe this off with my little dirty rag. And let me show you guys what we're gonna add for decals. If you have a Cricut Maker, Silhouette, any of that, I use removable vinyl. I'm really big on the usage of removable vinyl. And this is what the design looks like because we're a science department. So I was gonna do cogs and gears on one side and just kind of figure out the best place to put that one. This design is actually available in Cricut Design. If you've been having any issues with your Cricut, guys, log in, Google how to clear your cache or your cache. Empty that because I had over 100,000 files in there from some mysterious place. Go back, re-download Design Center, and I've had no issues, period. But every cup in this set is gonna have this design and then the last name, all right? And I want to show you this in color. I know that some of you love the shimmer removable vinyl. Shimmer vinyl, this is the Paper Studio version from Hobby Lobby. I love how this looks. I love how it looks on products. Guys, I'm gonna be honest, shimmer vinyl is the devil. Shimmer vinyl will make you want to toss your project across the room because it's really hard for this to stick to my transfer tape. I ordered my transfer tape from Amazon. I order it in a 25-foot roll. And I'm gonna be honest, this is my brand, if you guys can see that, from Amazon. If you're looking for a transfer tape, I highly, highly recommend you buy it in bulk because I think I may have spent about $10 for 25 feet of transfer tape on the roll, all right? Oh, one step that you did not see me do for the glitter tumbler, the one that was champagne. I will use a heat gun on that one as well. So I will let the bubbles rise and use a heat gun on that one as well. Excuse me. All right, so I am looking for a pair of scissors. I try to preserve what we're working on. Remember, this is the 3rd step of your Peekaboo. So we're gonna add decals. This is when you're going to have a smooth base. If it is not smooth to the touch, let me show you what happens. If you spray paint a Peekaboo, you see these, y'all, it looks like a pimple. Those don't go away. They're gonna show under your paint. If you have craters, this is one of my oops and mistakes. Did everybody see that? If you do not have a smooth tumbler all the way around, this is what you're going to get. You do not want this. All right, so that's just the edge of the cup where I should have sanded down and went in and did another set of epoxy. If you look here, some of your bottoms will look like this. So if you do not go in and sand that chunky glitter, it is going to bubble and it's going to show. There are 2 ways around this. I went ahead and added the decals. I don't know why. I should not have. Horrible idea. And then I'm like, look at that. So what you can do if you ever have this issue, if you feel it before you spray paint it, even after you spray paint it. So let's say you thought it was smooth. The first thing I could do is take acetone and wipe away the spray paint. So you can always use acetone to remove the spray paint. Go back in, sand it, re-epoxy another layer, and get rid of these craters, okay? You've got to be careful. There are only so many layers of epoxy that you want to add to cups. Guys, you do not want to give your customer a 25-pound cup. I have seen some cups where the rim is about a ½ an inch thick because they probably have about 8 to 10 layers on that cup. You want to sand once again to avoid this. This will even pop up if you're using fine glitter. So that's the other thing. So if you have questions on the spray painting or anything like that, go ahead and type those in for me and I will answer those as well. But I want to show you my mistakes. So I'm going to rub because I want to find the areas on here that are going to be smooth. I am actually going to do a leather grain pattern over these tumblers. So I'm going to try my hand at alcohol inks with leather grain. And I'm going to show you. I've got to kind of figure out placement because I have not. Normally with a 30, I will use, my letters are about anywhere from 2 to 3 inches. No more than 5 inches for a name because I kind of like the name to go across. But I think I want to have this pattern where it's going to slightly hang off the bottom here and then come all the way to the top. So I think it's going to be something kind of like this. Just a little something on the cup so that it shows the wood grain, but it also shows those other pieces. And I may, because I'm going to have all of this blank space on the opposite side, I got to decide if I want to leave that blank or if I want to add more than one of these. So that's kind of been my back and forth moment. Remember, shimmer vinyl is beautiful, but really hard to work with. So I have this actually done in white. And everybody, of course, has their favorite color. So you know how you ask people on the slide what color they want to use? I need to weed this baby really quickly. If you're having a problem with weeding your vinyl, always weed away from the letter that you are removing. A lot of people will talk about the reverse weed method where you're removing all that excess and leaving the word itself there. If you go away from the letter in case you scratch it with your removing tool, your weeding tool, it will not mess up the finish. And that's going to be the biggest thing, especially when you're removing your vinyl. If you're going to use 651 Oracle, let's say you only have permanent vinyl available, you can use permanent vinyl. I'm going to warn you, do not leave that vinyl on your cup for too long. It's going to start to cure. So I've had people who have waited 36 hours, 24 hours to start weeding, and they had quite a time trying to weed that design. You want your weeding to be as simple as possible. So I normally don't use white vinyl, really for this reason here, but you can see that's going to be the name, and you'll be able to see it brightly on the cup. If I'm doing a white cup, for example, I wouldn't use white vinyl if I could avoid it. You can normally see the indentions from the cup, so that's really, really helpful. But sometimes you cannot. All right. So this is another example. Just trying to find the outline of your design. You can also cut your designs twice. If you're dealing with glitter vinyl, and glitter vinyl, beautiful, but can be hard to work with. Holographic vinyl makes you feel as though you are going blind sometimes. It looks amazing on different products, but instead of pressing the arrow to release your mat from your Cricut, I highly recommend you let the machine cut it twice. So press the Cricut button again. It's going to restart and recut in the same area. As long as you do not allow your mat to be ejected, it will recut in the same space. I do that honestly with all of my glitter vinyls because they're so hard sometimes to just weed. I do have the little backlights. You can use those, the reading lamps, the reading lights that go on your laps. They look like little iPads. Those are amazing. Those are amazing. Hello, Miss Sophia. Hello, Claire. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, be sure to ask. I'm just here in Texas trying to stay warm. I think everybody to the north of us wanted to send us some weather, so they had something to look at, knowing that we do not have anything that's available for that. Make sure you pull out all of your smaller pieces as well. So you want to be sure to do that part. If you can't see, you're going to need a backlight because those smaller pieces, if you spray paint over them, they're just like doing the Dawn dish soap area. When you do that technique, it's not going to cover. So everywhere I'm laying my decal will not cover the glitter below because I want that to be the part that's going to peek through. If you're removing your vinyl and you're tearing your paint, two things. If it's really cold outside, bring your paint can inside and bring your tumbler inside. You want those both to be the same temperature. If you spray paint an extremely cold tumbler, it's going to ripple. If you ever get those ripples or anything like that, that's where that's coming from. All right. I would start with simple designs. I mentioned earlier about the honeybee cup was a big one. The honeycombs are really easy for you to go through. Make sure you have a pretty good tool. I do not buy expensive tools. This one actually came free with the kit. I think I ended up getting 2 or 3 of them free. People will send you random tools when you order stuff, so just wait. Be patient. I only got my Cricut set because I found them on clearance. I found it 75% off because the container was open, but all the pieces were in there, and so I jumped on it. And this one is almost weeded. Double check that you have always weeded the entire design, and you should be good. So I think we're looking pretty good. Your weeding doesn't have to be perfect, guys. Just like your base coat for paint does not have to be perfect. So you're going to notice that. I'm going to show you these 2 pieces. And then I'm going to show you how to weed this after it's actually dried. Because I will cut this painted as well. All right. So make a little room here. Hopefully everybody is doing good. Hello, Miss Tracy. How are you? Hopefully you guys are getting a little something out of this. So let me do a little rearranging and get this in view. We're going to place our decals. And honestly, because once again, my biggest habit is touching my cup, y'all. I'm a cup toucher. And I can see a couple of areas. I think this may be a good one. I want to find the smoothest areas to cover. This cup had a ridge at the bottom as well. So remember, chunky glitter can be your friend. Transfer tape is also going to be your friend. So this is my transfer tape from Amazon. I'm going to be using the same piece, so I'm pretty careful about where I'm sticking it. I normally use a nice size piece. You can get 3 or 4 uses out of the same piece of transfer tape. Even when it looks like it's holding the design from a previous cutout or word. And I'm over here trying to pull transfer tape from a piece that doesn't have any on it. Struggling. All right. So lay that name flat in the middle. And I have plenty of transfer tape on the side. Normally your finger, if you trace your design, does a pretty good job. This is white paper studio removal vinyl. When I first started out, I was like most people, I would buy a roll or 2 at a time because I didn't know what I was actually getting. If you notice that it's not coming off the way you want, take your tool and rub against it. And I actually use the silicone one because it's smooth. That one has a little grip to it. Go over all of your letters. If you start to pull your letters individually, they're going to be crooked. And honestly, I try not to put anything on a tumbler straight because it's not going to be straight anyway. I like to eyeball it. That's what I do. But notice my S was kind of holding on. If you're doing a name, double check the name, guys. Before you do this, be sure you are double checking exactly what you're working on. And I'm going to slant this once again because anything that is slanted does not have to be straight. So that's a limitation. I'm telling you. All right. I have a little towel that I usually hold. Because what goes over this layer? After you've placed all of your decals exactly where you want them, make sure you check the amount of negative space. When people talk about negative space on a design, they're looking at how much space is just empty or bare. You don't want to have too much because it makes your peekaboo look weird. But remember, we're going to save some areas so that we can pull the acetone from those areas as well. All right. The reason you epoxy over your glitter is so that your transfer tape doesn't move anything. you want to make sure that this is nicely sealed. I don't want any paint getting under the edges. And the less I touch it, the more likely it's going to stick where it needs to be. Now we're going to come around and we're going to figure out where we're going to put this other design. And I think we're going to actually need more than one of these designs. And I will actually show you guys too what happens when we try to use the shimmer glitter. The shimmer paper. The shimmer paper is gorgeous. For the longest, I couldn't figure out if it was permanent, semi-permanent, or what. But I just know when I'm working with it, I am going to do a lot of smoothing. I'm going to do a lot of pulling. And I want to make sure that this is going to stick really well. If you have a scraper, you can use those as well. They're just as good. Just make sure your entire design comes off, especially those smaller, intricate pieces. All right, so this is my entire design that's going to go onto this tumbler. I'm going to fill under there. I can feel that that name is toward the front. And I think we're going to end up having to cut more than one of these. Because I actually want a part of this. I think I'm going to use 2 of these per cup. I actually want a part of this, I think, to go by the name. Now, this cup is curved. And y'all know, curved cups can make you sad, right? So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to lay this first piece because I know I want this here. And I'm going to go in and do something that I actually dislike doing, but it's going to make my life a lot easier. I'm going to place cuts along this decal. Because remember, we're on a curved surface, right? So we have this decal that wants to go on pretty straight, and it's probably not. But those cuts are going to allow me to get a smooth motion. I'm going to hold. Nope, you're not going to turn the direction I want you to. So I'm going to turn this baby by hand. And wherever I start to get a crinkle in my transfer tape, y'all cut it. This design is small enough, it's thin enough that you can cut that transfer tape so that you're able to lay it exactly where you want to have it. If the cut is not big enough, I want you to carefully make another slit. That's going to be important because those slits are going to allow you, once again, to lay your vinyl where you want it to be. You know what the design looks like in your head. And because this is a curved cup, I'm going to just about tear all the way down. I want to keep this to where it's straight. It's going to go on here. And I'm smoothing from the middle out for this peekaboo. If your vinyl does not go on straight, it's going to allow paint to get under that area. And honestly, I found it by just cutting it. And I can see right now, y'all see that? That little piece, that little dot. That dot should have been weeded off. It's gonna make my cogwheel look solid, and I don't want that. So, removable vinyl is pretty forgiving. This is easiest when you attempt it on a straight cup. There are differences between cups. So let's say, for example, that 30-ounce skinny that we were working on earlier, it tapers. It is going to taper at the bottom. Do they make taper-free cups? Yes. And if it's a taper-free cup, they're going to let you know that it is taper-free. All right, so that's going to be another one. I want to make sure that this vinyl is going to find a way to lay down as flat as possible. So, we're going to turn it. Keep turning it. And you'll notice that I'm going to smooth from the middle out. And when I have an area that looks like it wants to buckle, I'm going to lift it up because you're going to go exactly where I want you to go. Now, right here in this design, I'm going to show you guys, there are always areas that you can carefully snip in your design. And that this cogwheel is going to be one of them. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to lay this cogwheel flat. This one here. Because we're going to come back and play with some of this vinyl. because that wasn't perfect. But I'm going to lift my transfer tape up. And these are some of the issues you're going to have, y'all. And then I'm going to take that piece that we cut and I'm going to try to lay it right on top. Because when I spray paint, it won't matter. If you're going to make a crease in your vinyl and pinch it up. If you pinch it up, when you spray paint, it's going to still give you an extremely smooth line. And honestly, when people look at it, the only person that's going to know that it didn't fully align is you. I have seen it a million times. It's probably the highlight of using quality glitter, quality alcohol inks, because they're going to be looking at the design while you're looking at the quality. And you guys are just, honestly, you're looking at two different things for two different reasons. So you learn not to pick out your flaws unless you're in this group and unless you're among other crafters. Because we'll notice it, but your client probably will not. All right. Now, I've got some buckles in there, y'all. I'm going to be honest. So if I turn this closer, and if you take a look, I'm going to turn this just a little bit, you're going to notice that we've had some air bubbles in there, right? You're going to go and smooth out as many of these air bubbles as you can. If they have to crease, remember to make the crease pinch in the middle, and it will not show when you go out to spray paint for your Peekaboo. This is removable vinyl, so 631 if you're an Oracle user. It's going to be removable vinyl. I'm using Paper Studio from Hobby Lobby, which a lot of us love, especially when you first start out. And then I started buying all of my vinyls, especially my heat transfer ones for shirts and all that stuff from Amazon, because I needed to have larger pieces and bigger bulk so that I can make those work. If you are working out and smoothing, make sure you smooth all the way to the edge. If you do not smooth to the edge, for example, here, there's a little bit of area in here. If I don't smooth to the edge, when I pull it away after spray painting, there will not be a crisp line there. All right? So it won't be perfect, but remember, these are also handmade products, and you need to make that very clear to your clients. This is not going to be like a Nike moment where everybody looks alike, so we're not running that kind of factory. I'm going to allow that to spin. And you want to take in consideration the amount of negative space. When I talk about negative space, I want you guys to look here. Hello, Miss Alicia. Hello, Miss Lauren and Kaylee. Thank you guys for joining me. This is negative space. So I've got to decide if I would be happy with that space or if I want to go in and actually put something in that space. And I'm going to be honest, y'all. If I put something in there, I think it may look a little busy, but I want to do something. I really want to do something maybe here. Or do you think that's enough? What do y'all think? Let me take this one off for a second. So this is what we're working with. 30-ounce tumbler. Last name is there. These are teacher tumblers, actually. This is your jade. Chunky holographic glitter. And this is just a cogwheel design from Design Space. And I'm trying to decide, should we run a second one here? Or maybe we should just put a couple of sprockets from Deep Around. So that might be a good one. Let's see. I'm normally not this touchy-feely with my cups, I promise. But do you remember the purple shimmer glitter that we had? Which is this one. And I told you guys, shimmer makes you sad. This is what I'm going to do. Because all of these are not connected, I'm going to go in and just pull them off. I'm going to use these bad boys. They've already been weeded. Like, we took our time to weed these and everything. So I'm going to go into this other design that I was going to actually throw away. And I'm going to place these just in a couple of random places. So find some random places, and we're going to smooth these from the middle out. So always remember, same direction each and every time. We're going to smooth from the middle out, and that's going to be your biggest piece. And I can probably use 2 of these per cup at least. Make sure you don't have any stray pieces. Those stray pieces will come back to haunt you. You don't want to have too many areas of peekaboo because you want to make sure that not too much of your glitter is going to show through either. So we're going to smooth that one. And you've got to decide, should we put something on the bottom or not? What do you guys think about the bottom of the cup? That's another one. It's another area where you may want to think about doing something. Just toward the bottom of your cup. And it just depends on how intricate this little design is. We can see if transfer tape will pick it up. Let's try to pick it up from this side. Normally I don't freehand these as much, but just want to be sure. Nope, we have to start where my finger is at, I'm gonna guess. And this is that shimmer glitter, remember from Hobby Lobby, that most of us love, or we have at least bought once by mistake and then have to figure out something to do with it. Because there's no point in letting glitter go to waste. Now, I don't think I'm gonna be able to get in there to make you as smooth as I want to. So I have to cut you and roll you together. And you'll look just as perfect. All right, it's probably pretty full. And then if you want to, we're gonna just go the extra mile because that's what we do. We're gonna add this other little piece too. So this will be all of our cogwheels from Design Center that we weeded out. So we found a way to kind of use a product that otherwise probably would have been left behind. All right, so we're going to bend these around the corner. And this is gonna cover the bottom of the tumbler as well. I like a decorated bottom, I'll be honest. I know a lot of people avoid the bottoms just because you don't necessarily see it. Some people put their logos on the bottom of cups. I haven't really decided whether that's what I wanna do or not. I do brand my products since I make candles, but on my tumblers, I don't know. I've been listening to the great debate and I've seen some really good threads in different groups about it. And I think it's all about you and what kind of clients you have, whether they'll like it or not. I don't like the amount that's coming around to the front. I think it's a bit much. So I'm actually gonna cut this cogwheel. And this is what you do. You make it look the way you want it to. And when it gets there, you're gonna know it. You will know it. So this is what I added to the bottom as well. All right. When you have made it to this point, you are almost there. So this is your Peekaboo step number 4. You are decal, you are smooth, and this baby is ready to be spray painted. I'm actually going to spray paint all of these in a white flat paint because I'm going to do a wood grain pattern over these. So I'm going to warm. If you're in a cold area, make sure you bring your spray paint in for a couple of minutes and you can warm these as well. Now, after you spray paint it, I normally only have to do one coat. I am a Rust-Oleum girl about 90% of the time. And then every now and then I have to do Krylon paint. So I go out to my garage and this is what this is going to look like. And if you look closely, if I angle it, you're gonna notice that you can see the vinyl that's under there. And this is what we're gonna remove. You're also gonna notice on this particular cup, take a look. Told you guys, imperfections are going to be one of those things. We're gonna take out, for example, here's one. I can fill this in with epoxy and you won't be able to see it. But what I'm gonna do is take acetone, actually wipe across this part to allow your glitter to show. And then we will epoxy over it from there, okay? So that'd be the other thing. Now, this Peekaboo was done on yesterday. It was really, really cold outside. And we were trying to figure out something to stay busy with. And so I went ahead and finished the Peekaboo. And I'm gonna need something to kind of lay this on. And my little towel is not working it. So, take one of these little silicone mats. I need to make one of those pool noodle things that holds your tumbler in place. I have not done that yet, guys. But this is a silicone mat. Remember, epoxy does not stick to silicone. And what I'm going to use is for, honestly, it's just to protect my cup from my surface, because my surface is not the cleanest ever. But this will keep us from touching and adding anything else to that cup that we don't want to. So we're going to remove the decals from this one. Simple tool. You don't have to have anything special. This is actually one of the free tools that came with one of the kits. And I'm going to actually be sure, because I can see pretty closely what we're working on. And I'll bring you guys in a little bit closer so you can kind of see. You want to make sure that as you are pulling up that vinyl, you're pulling into the design. And notice how clean the edge is going to be for you. And this one was actually painted on yesterday. So it was about 5 degrees, I think, outside, which in Texas, y'all, is like, we're living our best Alaskan lives right now. We've had enough of this weather. We respect all people who live through it, but that is not us. And this was my rainbow cup. So this is one that I think I had used Celebration on, Pot of Gold, and then there's one other color that's, the Jade is also on this cup. If you use quality vinyl, you're gonna notice, if you look there, you're gonna get clean edges. This is actually Krylon paint, which is not one of my favorites, but I love this shade of blue, and I just haven't found anything quite close to it for Rust-Oleum. So if you guys know a Rust-Oleum color close to it, let me know, because I'm usually like an Ace Hardware kind of girl, because they have good paint sales a couple of times a year, and I go in and just kind of stock up. And now that I've learned that flat paint is my friend, it'll be a lot easier to find. With your Peekaboo, just make sure you're always working towards your design. Do not push in too hard. If you do, you're gonna scratch your epoxy. If you scratch your epoxy, that line can show through. So I've seen some really great designs, and you get down to the corner and there is a line because they scratched their epoxy. Your client may not notice it, but you're gonna notice it, and it bothers you. So be mindful of that one as well. And I appreciate you guys hanging out with me today. This is actually a KDA Tumbler. It's one of those Peekaboos. I think I'm gonna keep it solid. I've never seen this color paint under epoxy, not for a tumbler. I did a Mario rolling tray with this color, and it was gorgeous. So I really want to see what this glitter does, see how easy that comes up. And there is no adhesive. If for any reason you have adhesive, sometimes people get the little white sticky stuff in between, take a Q-tip. And if you don't have a Q-tip, you can use the edge of your weeder, add a little paper towel, dip it in alcohol or acetone, and you can actually go through and take out those pieces as well, because that's going to be the other thing. These are going to be those itty bitty pieces. I have no idea what this even says up here. I just know it's a part of the design. And so this is the tedious part, because you want to respect that paint job. Now, I saw a question earlier. I believe somebody commented, what happens if you're weeding and you scratch the paint? Twofold. You can either take a little acetone and move some of that paint around. It's going to happen. You can make it a part of the design. So when you're adding that final coat of epoxy, you can add a little glitter into your epoxy, and that will cover that as well. Now, glitter is your friend. So if you have a glitter tumbler, this is one of those. Actually, I won't be adding any more glitter to it. I'm just going to base it off of what's already peeking through. It's a tricolor cup. And so you can clean that area to kind of take away that mark, because any mark that's showing, the epoxy is just going to highlight it. And I almost made a mistake there. It's going to come through. What happens if I try to remove my vinyl and the vinyl just won't come up? So it just feels as though my paint has secured my vinyl in place. That happens sometimes. If you're noticing that it's difficult to weed after you've spray painted over for this Peekaboo technique, check and see if you're using removable vinyl or permanent. If you're using permanent vinyl, I just recommend you move a little bit quicker. If it's warm outside, you get a little bit more time. But if it's cold, sometimes my permanent vinyl will cure to my epoxy layer pretty quickly. And I'm getting to the point now where I'm only down to permanent vinyl and heat transfer. I get the question as well, can you use heat transfer vinyl on a tumbler? The answer is yes. If you've seen those little irons, little handheld ones, the steamies, they sell at Walmart for like $13. They work. They actually work, y'all. So here is the baddest design. That's just that peekaboo of all three colors. You can see where my jade was starting. And then down here at the bottom, if you're trying to figure out how we know where to go, you can see the lines for your outcome. So what you're removing in that negative space is going to be there as well. I recommend before doing the peekaboo steps, if you are doing it for a client, go ahead and send them a picture of your decals on the cup before you spray paint. Because once you spray paint and you're removing those decals for the peekaboo, you would have to go back and remove this entire layer. So let's say I don't like how this layer looks. It's just not my friend. Because I can show you a couple of imperfections. For example, I have a little bump right here. On this little bump that is here, I'm actually going to take some acetone and scrub that portion out. Because I know that that bump is going to show under epoxy. Bumps do not disappear under epoxy. Epoxy is going to highlight everything. You can do this layer with gloves on. I've tried and I mutilated my vinyl because I was trying to avoid where my hand went. But even on this paint, I'm still going to, after I finish, I've allowed my decals to, my revealed areas to sit for a couple of minutes. I'm still going to use Dawn and go over this layer. You don't want to remove your decals until your paint is fully dry, because if not, you're going to end up with fingerprints everywhere as well. So that's the other part. And there are 4 of these. I will often put the decals in front of me so that I know which decal I should be looking for. If you're on a tumbler that's the same color as your vinyl, so white tumbler, white vinyl, and then white paint over it. And if it's a thin vinyl, it can disappear. So you won't be able to see the seams really good. So keep in mind, you want to make sure you remove all parts. And that's what one of those symbols is going to look like after we removed it for the peekaboo part. So you're just literally allowing that glitter portion to come through. And remember, everywhere else you see an imperfection, for example, here, you can either fill it in with the epoxy, because it's painted, I'm going to go over it with acetone. I'm going to remove it and allow my glitter to show through. So that's going to be it for me, guys. I'm going to go ahead and remove the rest of these. I will do my acetone wipes here to kind of help with my little spots of imperfection. And on the next video, when I am spray painting and working through my storyboard one that I plan on doing later this week, I will show you guys exactly how far this cup has come, because it should be ready to hit the drying rack by then. If you have not already, you can follow up with my post at A Crafter's Journey. I try to add my hashtags so you know where I am within the group. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I will likely see those. I want to thank the admins again for allowing me to post lives and get to know you guys. And this was our Peekaboo Method, episode number 3. I am Chandria from BCJ Decor, and I will see you later. Thank you, guys.